Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled you're here today because we're about to decode one of the biggest, most fascinating mysteries happening in the tech market right now. For a whole generation, Adobe has been the undisputed king of creative software. Their products were the tools that quite literally built the modern digital world as we know it. But today, the story has dramatically shifted. We are witnessing a corporate paradox unfolding in real time. So, we're going to look at the numbers, the business strategies, and the massive user backlash to understand exactly what is happening to this digital empire.
Okay, let's dive into this. On paper, Adobe looks like an absolute unstoppable juggernaut. If you look at their 2025 revenue, they pulled in a staggering, record-breaking $23.8 billion. The company's CEO has been out there publicly stating that they are extremely profitable, growing by double digits. By literally all traditional metrics, this is a company that isn't just surviving, it's absolutely thriving. This was actually their best financial year ever.
But here's where the story takes a really wild turn. Despite those record-breaking profits, the market is absolutely terrified of Adobe's future. By the spring of 2026, Adobe stock had completely collapsed by roughly 65% from its peak, trading all the way down near $200 a share. And what's super interesting here is that the data shows this completely defies the massive tech market boom we've been seeing across the rest of the industry. Asset managers who used to champion the stock are suddenly abandoning ship, so you have to ask yourself, what is going on?
That leads us directly to the central question of this explainer. How does a tech titan hit record revenue, yet see its stock plummet so magnificently? What does the market know that those top-line revenue numbers are hiding? Well, to answer that, we really have to look past the balance sheet. Today, we're going to uncover how a mix of relentless corporate strategy, forced subscriptions, and the rapid rise of artificial intelligence are systematically dismantling a once-beloved digital empire right from the inside out.
And this brilliantly illustrates where the real fracture began. Back in 2013, Adobe made a radical shift. They totally killed off the ability to buy their software outright. In the old ownership era, you could just buy the entire master collection for about $2,600. You paid once, and it was yours forever. Simple, right? But Adobe swapped that for the rental era, rebranding the whole thing as the Creative Cloud. Suddenly, you had to pay every single month. To put that into perspective, a creative professional over a 40-year career could end up paying up to $100,000 in rent just to access the tools they need to do their job. Because once your life's work is locked in Adobe's proprietary file formats, the day you stop paying is the day you essentially lose your career.
But it wasn't just that they made you rent. It was how they trapped you once you did. When users actually tried to leave, they hit a brick wall of what the industry calls dark patterns. Adobe heavily steered customers toward a plan called annual paid monthly. Now that sounds like a flexible month-to-month deal, right? Well, actually, scratch that. It was a legally binding year-long contract. If you tried to cancel early, they'd hit you with a massive early termination fee, sometimes hundreds of dollars, completely hidden behind tiny icons in the fine print. And the cancellation process itself? Oh man, if you've ever tried it, you know the absolute nightmare of navigating endless menus, constant discount prompts, and these mysterious error loops. It was all deliberately designed to just wear you down until you gave up and kept paying.
This trap got so infamous and so horrendously frustrating that the United States government actually had to step in. The Department of Justice and the FTC literally sued Adobe, explicitly accusing them of trapping customers with hidden fees and a deliberately agonizing cancellation process. The fallout from all this? Adobe eventually agreed to a massive $150 million settlement. Now, naturally, they denied any wrongdoing, but the damage to their reputation with their core users was already completely cemented.
To truly understand this kind of behavior, economists point to a very specific model. Political economist Brett Christophers refers to this as rentier capitalism. Now, rentier capitalism is basically an economic system where a business makes its money not by constantly innovating or creating new value to win you over, but simply by extracting rent from assets they already control. Under this model, Adobe basically stopped acting like a software creator and started acting like a digital landlord. You weren't a customer to be won anymore, you were just a tenant to be squeezed.
And this concept is actually echoed pretty widely in modern economic theory. For example, the Slovenian philosopher Slavoj Žižek describes the shift as a privatization of commons, calling it a new feudal moment. Similarly, economists like Yanis Varoufakis refer to this whole system as techno-feudalism. The overarching academic argument here is that giant tech platforms are acting like lords who own the digital land, while the users, the creatives, the designers, the video editors, are effectively working as digital serfs, constantly toiling on the platform and paying endless rent just for the privilege of being there.
What's absolutely crucial to take away here is that Adobe's 2013 pivot to subscriptions became the blueprint for the entire modern economy. It really kicked off the broader death of consumer ownership. Every tech executive watched Adobe get incredibly rich by forcing users to rent, and they just copied the playbook. Now we rent our music from Spotify. Amazon famously reached into users' Kindles and deleted copies of the book 1984 that people had already paid for. Car insurance monitors your daily movements to price gouge you. The average person is now juggling 5 to 8 active subscriptions at any given time. Slowly but surely, the concept of truly owning anything is just being ground into dust, and Adobe was really the pioneer of this macro trend.
Let's move to and see how this builds over time, because a company doesn't get this brazen overnight. Adobe built its empire through a calculated, decades-long monopoly strategy of buy or bury. Back in 1982, they established their base with PostScript and the globally dominant PDF format. In 1988, fun fact, they didn't even invent Photoshop. They just licensed it from the Knoll brothers and pushed it to become the industry standard. But look closely at 1994 and 2005. When a major rival named Freehand popped up, Adobe just bought the company to kill the software. The FTC actually intervened and banned them from buying it again for a decade. So, what did Adobe do? They literally just waited out the 10-year ban. And then, in 2005, bought Freehand's new parent company, Macromedia, for $3.4 billion. They erased their last serious rival from existence and trapped consumers in their ecosystem for good.
And right here is the inevitable consequence of that kind of monopoly. When your customers literally have nowhere else to go, product quality just becomes an afterthought. The author and activist Cory Doctorow actually coined a very colorful, perfect term for this phenomenon, "shitification." Because users were totally locked into renting, Adobe didn't have to fight to impress anyone anymore. As a direct result, the massive 2025 releases of flagship products, like Photoshop and Premiere Pro, were widely slammed by professionals as being incredibly bloated and just full of bugs. Basically, quality rots when competition dies.
But the real breaking point for user trust, it didn't come from a software bug. It came from a massive overreach. In 2024, Adobe rolled out a mandatory update to its terms of service. They completely shifted from respecting user privacy to demanding mandatory access to users' private, unpublished content, both for automated AI training and literal human review. The scale of the backlash was unbelievable. A single online post breaking down these draconian terms hit 12 million views. Creators were up in arms for months. And sure, Adobe eventually tried to walk it back, but honestly, the damage was permanent. The trust was entirely broken.
And right as that trust vanished, the market suddenly exploded with real, viable alternatives. The onslaught of competition is now coming from all sides. When the wildly popular design tool Figma threatened them, Adobe tried their old buy or bury tactic with a mind-blowing $20 billion buyout offer. But this time, regulators across the US, UK, and EU stepped in and swiftly blocked it. Meanwhile, Canva went out and acquired Affinity, giving millions of users a highly affordable, even free alternative to Photoshop. And on the video side, Blackmagic aggressively made their Hollywood-grade DaVinci Resolve software completely free. That is taking a massive, rapid bite out of Premiere Pro's market share.
And that failure to acquire Figma? It was an incredibly costly defeat for Adobe. When the merger officially collapsed at the end of 2023 due to that regulatory pressure, Adobe was contractually obligated to pay Figma a staggering $1 billion breakup fee. Just think about that. $1 billion handed over to a massive rival for absolutely nothing in return. And what's incredible is that Figma actually used that massive cash injection to help itself prepare to go public, basically turning Adobe's accidental funding into their own biggest, most formidable opponent.
So, feeling the pressure, Adobe reacted the exact way landlords always do. They just cranked the rent handle even higher. They started forcing their generative AI called Firefly into all their apps, and then made the users pay for it regardless of whether they actually wanted it or not. The internet very quickly dubbed this the AI tax. The incredibly popular photography plan was hiked from $9.99 a month to $14.99. Other Creative Cloud plans saw ridiculous price increases of up to 50%. They were basically squeezing a user base that was already frantically looking for the exit doors.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how punishing Adobe was if you tried to escape those price hikes. Let's say a user managed to fight their way through all those dark patterns and successfully downgraded to a cheaper standard plan just to save some money. Adobe heavily penalized them. They slashed the user's monthly AI credits from 1,000 all the way down to just 25. That is a 97.5% reduction in capability. You either paid more for an AI you'd never asked for, or you paid slightly less for a severely crippled version of the software you already relied on.
But here is the ultimate poetic irony of this whole saga. By plugging their Firefly AI into everything like absolute mad, Adobe effectively contributed to their own redundancy. Adobe's own AI is literally cannibalizing its core business right now. Just think about it for a second. Firefly allows everyday users to generate incredible images with a simple text prompt. So why would a marketing company pay for expensive Adobe stock images when they can just generate them for free? Why pay for a highly skilled editor using a highly expensive Photoshop subscription when the AI can do the heavy lifting instantly?
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative question. If AI makes the hard stuff easy, who really needs Adobe anymore? You know, when giants like Meta or Microsoft hit rough patches, the AI boom was their massive bailout. It brought in huge new investments. But for Adobe, AI isn't the bailout, it's the executioner. It's draining away the very skill scarcity that made their difficult, expensive software so necessary in the first place. Yes, Adobe might be posting record profits today, but the market clearly sees the writing on the wall. They squeeze their users, let their products stagnate, and bet the house on an AI that is actively replacing them. It's a really powerful lesson for the modern tech era, and something we should all be paying very close attention to. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to always keep questioning the tools you use every single day.